Hi everyone, this is Manner of Death. Thank you for tuning in to watch another episode. If you would be so good as to please subscribe if you have not, that would be really much appreciated. This week's Manner of Death is homicide. Kathleen Nicastro Luongo. Kathleen, or Kathy, was a young mother to a 2-year-old son who was 28 years old. She was described as energetic and a talented seamstress. She also was known to be very loving to her son. She was a volunteer at Weight Watchers and regularly tanned at a tanning salon known as Tantasia. Her life would change on May 18, 1984. That day at 5 p.m., Kathy went to Holiday Health in the Warwick Mall to use the gym. Afterwards, she went to dinner with some friends at a restaurant called September's. The friends mentioned that Kathy seemed normal and didn't drink that night. At 8:30 p.m. or so, Kathy went home. According to her husband, David, Kathy had wanted to go out that night with him, but he declined and they had argued. The couple was having marital problems, and Kathy was considering divorce. After the fight, Kathy removed her wedding rings and left the home in her car. The following Saturday morning, May 19, 1984, Kathy had an appointment planned at the tanning salon and a speaking event for Weight Watchers at the Governor Francis Plaza. However, the times for those events came and passed, with Kathy not attending either. As you can imagine, based on her dedication to these activities, it was unlike her to miss them. Her vehicle, a blue 1976 Toyota Celia hatchback that had custom Rhode Island plates with Luongo, was seen several times that day, especially around 6 p.m. on Post Road close to City Hall. The driver was not described as a woman, but a large man. At 12:22 p.m., Sunday, May 20th, 1984, Kathy's car was found parked by a baseball field behind City Hall beside the Warwick Fire Department. The doors were locked and the keys were on the floor. Her purse was found with money inside, leading detectives to believe robbery was not the motive. Kathy was discovered in the back seat, laid down, her head behind the driver's seat. At first, police thought she died of an overdose, but this was later ruled out when an autopsy determined she had died of manual strangulation. She had not been sexually assaulted. Naturally, because of their troubled relationship, the primary suspect was David, Kathy's husband. A grand jury was formed, but not enough evidence was present to arrest him. A new investigation was sparked in 1998 when a former neighbor came up as a potential suspect. DNA was taken, but no arrests occurred. Since then, no further advances have been made in the case. Friends and loved ones are still striving to get Kathy Luongo's case out there, and even have a Facebook page up dedicated to her. I will leave a link to it in the description below. If you have any information that could help solve Kathy Luongo's case, please contact the Warwick Police at 401-468-4261. Lila Poitras. Lila Jean Poitras was born on September 12, 1949. She was only 28 years old when she went missing from her residence at 70 Cynthia Avenue in Tiverton, Rhode Island. On June 29, 1977, a worried neighbor did not see any movement from Lila's house and called the police for a welfare check. She even had her husband peek through the windows, but he only saw her television playing. When the police got there, some immediate oddities were noticed. Her car was locked and her porch light was on, even though it was the middle of the day. Once inside her home, they saw her purse, ID, glasses, and contact lenses were left behind. The television was playing, and her cats were there, but Lila was missing, along with a spare pair of house keys. No signs of struggle were mentioned. At the time, she had a job for Aetna Life and Casualty Company, but she had actually not shown up to work for several days without calling, which was not like her. Because of the circumstances, a search began for Lila. After this was announced to the public, another neighbor claimed they heard screaming around 3 a.m. on June 27, 1977. The last person to see Lyla was her boyfriend, who said he left her place midnight on June 27th after watching a Red Sox baseball game. Interestingly, since this was the 70s, most TV channels signed off at some point in the night, meaning if her TV was still on when the police and neighbor checked, Lyla had to have been watching it and then left the room or was taken before the station signed off. Otherwise, she would have switched off the TV once the programs ended, and it would have been off when they checked her home. The fact that it was on means she was watching and was then interrupted and didn't or couldn't turn it off. This places her disappearance to be sometime in the early morning hours. According to police, even though her boyfriend was the last to see her, he is not considered a suspect. Their theory is that she locked her doors and went outside with someone she was familiar with, not expecting to be gone for too long. This makes sense considering her TV and the crucial items to her everyday life that she left behind. Apparently, prior to her disappearance, Lyla had been planning a trip to visit her parents in Caribou, Maine, which was also her hometown. She had previously moved to Rhode Island after marrying, but stayed there even when the couple divorced. 2 weeks later, on July 13, 1977, Lyla's body was recovered. Some Rhode Island Department of Transportation workers were performing maintenance on William Canning Boulevard, about 3.3 miles from her home, when they found her body under some brush. She was found fully clothed and with the spare keys in her pocket. No signs of physical or sexual assault were detected. It is thought she was most likely dragged out of the car and into the brush. Her cause of death was a single gunshot wound to the right side of her head by a small caliber pistol. Her manner of death was ruled a homicide. Many people have been interviewed regarding her case, but it still remains unsolved. Lyla was described as someone who loved animals, and as you can see in her photo, she is there holding a hamster. She was also fondly remembered in the community where she lived. If you have any information that could help potentially solve Lila Poitras' case, please contact the Tiverton Police Department at 401-625-6717. Kimberly Morse. Kimberly Sue Morse was born January 24, 1967, to parents Edward and Ruth Morse. As she grew older, Kimberly became really interested in fitness and dancing. She competed in bikini contests, often winning prize money. When she was 30, she moved to Providence, Rhode Island, and became a dancer at Foxy Lady Gentlemen's Club. Even in this environment, she never got into trouble, as is often seen with women who are a part of the dancing or stripping scene. Kimberly was enthusiastic, and when a friend of hers enrolled in a beauty academy to become an esthetician, Kimberly enrolled as well. All of her potential would be taken, though. On January 18, 2000, Kimberly arrived at the Foxy Lady Gentlemen's Club for her shift. When work was over at 1:40 to 1:50 a.m., she went back to her apartment. What happens next is speculated by police. Most likely, Kimberly entered her apartment and saw the door was open. She set down her things and was attacked from behind before being brutally killed. She had been stabbed several times. She wasn't found until 5 o'clock of the following afternoon, when the firefighters were called about smoke coming from her apartment. When the firefighters arrived, they saw Kimberly's nude body in the bathtub on fire. There was blood everywhere, covering the walls and the floors of the kitchen, hallway, and bathroom. She was only 32 years old. Her neighbor recalls hearing a thump, but no yelling or cries for help. He also said he heard footsteps following the noise. Her coworkers were also interviewed, but didn't notice anything out of place the night before. Police believe her killer knew her and that the crime was premeditated. It has been 22 years and Kimberly's case remains unsolved. There is a $20,000 reward for any information leading to an arrest. If you have any information, please come forward, as it could be the missing key to solving Kimberly Morse's case. Nicole Parsons Bucky. Nicole Parsons Bucky was born on October 16, 1973, to her mother, Robin Parsons. Nicole was a 27-year-old woman who lived in Providence, Rhode Island. She was a young mother and was described as having a beautiful smile. This would all end tragically with her murder on September 11, 2001. Around midnight of September 11, 2001, some neighbors of Nicole's entered her home and found her body. It was originally thought she had committed suicide based on her location. She was in her bathtub, fully clothed, and a hairdryer was plugged into the wall. But an autopsy quickly ruled that out, as she had water in her nasal cavity. There were signs of strangulation, and her pancreas was hemorrhaged by blunt trauma. There is also no indication of electrocution, which would have been the method of her death if she did commit suicide. They immediately ruled her manner of death a homicide. 3 days before this, Nicole was viewed fighting with her ex-boyfriend, who was known as Huggy. She was bruised up and allegedly dragged out of her apartment building and locked out. Her neighbors would say they saw her ex-boyfriend outside of the apartment wanting his items that she apparently had. Because of the disturbance, the police were called and a no verbal contact order was filed. Her neighbors said that within hours of her death, he was back at the apartment trying to get inside. Now, her ex-boyfriend Huggy states, according to an email statement to 12 News, that he fully cooperated with the investigation and claims his innocence of the crime. Even with his history of fighting with Nicole, he was never directly linked to her murder. Her mother has gone several times to the news to conduct interviews and runs a Facebook page dedicated to her daughter. I will link that below. Since then, it is thought that perhaps the terroristic events of that day hindered the investigation because news coverage was blocked for anything other than 9/11. Since then, Nicole Bucky's case remains unsolved. There is a $1,000 reward for any information that leads to an arrest. If you have any information you think is important to Nicole's case, please contact Providence Police Department or Crime Stoppers of Rhode Island. John Kieron. On November 23, 2011, at 5:09 p.m., 70-year-old John Kieron was taking his usual walk to his liquor store to buy lottery tickets. As he was crossing Main Road in Tiverton, Rhode Island, he was hit by a car. The car ran, fleeing the scene, and a severely injured John Kieron. He was taken to the hospital and placed on life support for 10 weeks, but he succumbed to his wounds on February 1st, 2012. A witness did see the incident, and one piece of evidence was left behind. The side passenger mirror fell off. The vehicle was described as a light-colored 4-door sedan, maybe like an older Nissan Maxima. Unfortunately, the driver has never come forward. His family really wanted to have answers about John's death. If you have any information that could help solve John Kieron's case, please contact the Detective Division of the Tiverton Police Department at 401-625-6717. Hi everyone, thank you so much for watching until the end. I really appreciate all the support you give me. Please go ahead and leave a like or comment if you enjoyed watching, or if you would like to give me some sort of feedback or cases that you would recommend I cover. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.